we should be able to do much better for children and families with autism and related disorders. So we need to do research to figure out how to move diagnosis earlier and earlier, preferably in the newborn period, to identify children at high risk. And we know that if we intervene early with various behavioral educational strategies, that will improve long-term outcomes for these children and also for their families.
The wheels of science tend to move very slow, and that's a good thing, we tell the parents, because you don't want to just jump on a bandwagon and without testing it fully to make sure what we're finding out is true and does work. The kind of work we do often requires many, many kids, in the thousands. So you just can't do a couple kids over a couple months and have an answer.
The thing about science is we can't really feel confident about any of our decisions unless that science has been replicated, preferably by someone else who's not involved with you, so we can confirm that this is actually a real finding and not something specific that's idiosyncratic to the work I'm doing or the way I conduct my research. And so that process then also takes some time, because then other scientists have to say, that's an interesting question, I'd like to explore it, and they go through that same exact process. So then it really brings on to several years to actually get from a point here's a research question, they're going to have an answer.
What we're doing is really valid, and I think whenever you're going to enter your child in a treatment study, you want to make sure that everything that's being done, all of the assessments, everything's as valid as it can be, because you're investing a lot of time being in a study, and I think that's you want the results to be as important and telling as possible. So that's one of the reasons things take so long.
But the key thing is to take the right steps. Instead of just hoping that by luck we find the right combination, we need to take small incremental steps. We need to identify things that we really truly understand, and with time that will build into an understanding of autism, an understanding of the brain, and therapeutic targets.
I think back to the 90s when I first got into autism research. There wasn't a lot of money coming from NIH or federal dollars to help support autism research. And so a lot of families gathered together and said, we got to do something about this. So we had all these different family-run groups that were funding research. National Alliance for Autism Research, Autism Speaks, Cure Autism, now these sort of family-run groups. And that's super inspiring to me to see that families are saying, hey, this is a problem for us. This is a challenge in our family. We want to help not only our family, we want to help other families, and so how can we support science to move that forward?
So alongside having more families coming in for autism research, we're also having more data about how the brain works. And bringing those two together is where the secret to unlocking autism lies.
They're part of a community of people who can get together and talk with each other, not just us as the experts in autism on the science side, but they're the experts in autism on the parent side. So what you find is these parents, our Simon's Simplex collection is a great example of that. They start coming to all these different events together, they start bonding together, they talk to each other, they Facebook together, and eventually they have their own community of support, which is huge for the family. So I think they get many different benefits out of it.
Every family that comes along is vital for that process. We're trying to find these same mutations in the same gene, and that happens really rarely. So in our last study, the real breakthrough came from just 2 families, and that's 2 out of hundreds. If either one of those families hadn't participated, we would have had difficulty understanding what was going on. And we felt that was really a big breakthrough. We found a new gene that's associated with autism, and that's actually led us on to finding many more genes as the process.
It's exceedingly helpful to have such varied and diverse information coming from multiple sources and also coming from multiple methods, so that we can start to make some connections between genes and what's going on in the brain and behavior. And I think that the thinking behind this is that this is really going to be how we discover what's really causing autism and other neurodevelopmental disorders.
And we really can't do any of that without real collaborations with parents and families. And I don't mean collaborations in the sense of, I'm a scientist and I need some people to participate in studies. I mean collaboration in the sense of a lot of the questions that we have are driven by parents and family members and families with autism who say, this is a significant concern for our family and this is a problem. We don't know why and we don't know how to best intervene. And so that's one family coming to me as a clinician. But then as a scientist, I can think, well, then how do we best answer that question for you in a scientific venue? Can I work with a lot of other families and try to pull together patterns and help answer those questions? So the collaboration really involves families driving the research and helping pinpoint what are the important questions we should be asking.
Participating in a genetic study or any research, I think, is a really brave thing to do, because it's difficult to know what the researchers are going to do. It's difficult to know how it's going to benefit you or what's going to come of it. But it is absolutely vital. We wouldn't be able to do any research without the families, and every single family which comes along is essential.
The research that we do may not help an individual child at that moment, but by finding that this is a medication that works, or this is a behavioral therapy that works, or this is a genetic finding that's associated with autism, and that can be taken back to some of the basic scientists, and they can look for new treatment targets because they understand that when they put it in an animal model or something like that. That can make a huge difference for everybody coming along behind. And I think a lot of the families that I've worked with and a lot of the research projects that I've worked with have felt really good about that. That's what they're contributing, is they've fought for their kids, they've gone through this process, and now if they can actually help some parents who are coming along behind them, I think they think that's really helpful.
They know that there are other families who are in the same situation that they are, and families that are going to be following in their footsteps behind them. And so I think it really gives them an opportunity to help that cohort of folks in the hopes that maybe they'll have a little easier road ahead of them than what they might have had.
There's one 15-year-old boy who sat down across from me as we're doing some testing, and he says, you know, the reason I'm doing this is because I'm trying to help my people. You realize I'm helping my people here. And it was really, I thought it was quite telling and inspiring that here was a kiddo who realized that maybe some of this work wouldn't necessarily help his family particularly, but he really wanted to help families in general. And I was really inspired by that, and it's sort of kind of what drives me, keeps me excited.
Well, the most exciting part about the field of autism, it's a relatively new field. And because of the new technologies that are out there, the amount of just incredibly bright minds that are turning to this problem, yeah, it might take years, but it might not too. I mean, there are some discoveries that who knows what's around, the next month, next year.
From the point of view of being a family, you are completely unique. You may have a cause of autism which is alone to your family, but it might be vital for understanding what autism is.
There needs to be more people engaged in this question of how can we most be helpful for autism. So I'm hoping that's the future.